He's in the familiar colours of Mr. Dick Hollingsworth, who bred him, and bred him from his tremendously successful female line. The dam of Dry Dock is in fact a half-sister to the Oaks winner, Byreme, and he's beautifully bred to stay by high line out of a half-sister to an Oaks winner, so that there's no doubt about his stamina, but there is on form quite a doubt about his ability to handle this ground. Last time out, for instance, at Ascot in the King Edward VII Stakes, he ran very, very moderately indeed behind Love the Groom. Both these horses have run against Love the Groom, and neither of them got anywhere near him. But Dry Dock had done better earlier on. He won at Chester. It probably wasn't all that good a Chester Vase, but he won it nicely and ran a serious good race behind Celestial Storm at Newmarket. Nevertheless, I think he'll be competing for second place today. Number 4, Dry Dock, the Mount of Willie Carson. And there are, of course, only 3 runners. Marcando, who would have been an interesting runner in this field because he's got a considerable turn of speed, but he hates the soft ground, and Luca Cumani understandably took him out. That's Colchis. Let's have another look at reference point if we can.
I don't think so, anyhow.
There he is, absolutely as cool as a cucumber, not a bead of sweat on him anywhere. And Steve is pretty cool too. Well, so no doubt is John McCurrick.
Well, reference point open 12 to 1 on, 1 punch at 3,600 to win 300, another 2,400 to win 200, no tax on course, now 14 to 1 on reference point, 14 against Dry Dock, 16 to 1 Colchis, 21 favourites and 37 runnings of the Voltigeur, 10 odds on winners of 1. No one believes it possible the reference point can get beaten. 14 on.
So they're all installed for the mile-and-a-half race, and their orders and they're away. And reference point, as expected, really goes out in what could be a very valuable public gallop, but he's there, and it's reference point. Clear of Dry Dock in second place and Colchis back in third. So it's all on Steve Cawthon, 131 winners this season, and reference point leads to Dry Dock and Willie Carson second, and Cash Asmussen on Colchis, he's back in third. So reference point in the lead. Shows away by 2 to 3 lengths to Dry Dock in second and Colchis in third. And John Oaksey, do you expect Steve to keep up the gallop, or do you think he'll quicken up, or what will his tactics be?
I do think he'll quicken up, Graham. I would say they're not going a bad gallop in considering the ground, but I would expect Steve to quicken a little bit coming round the turn for home. That's been his tactics in the past. He's certainly quickened going into the turn at Ascot. Of course, they were very different opposition that day, but I would expect that he'd move reference point not into top gear, but into a slightly higher gear than he is at the moment, because as you can see from the way the 2 jockeys are sitting behind him, they're both quite happy with this pace so far. Reference point hasn't stretched them yet, but he will.
And he leads by a couple of lengths to Dry Dock in second and Colchis back in third, and they're halfway in the Grey Voltigeur. And it's reference point who leads then from Dry Dock in second place, and then back in third is Colchis. And it's so good to see a terrific crowd here at York come and see a good horse in action. 14 to 1 on, mark you. Not as bad as Scarlet played the other day at Wolverhampton. That was 22 to 1 on. But how can you stop Henry Cecil on his way towards $2 million in prize money if this fellow and his other horse wins later on this afternoon? But it's Colchis who's being brought wide, and reference point is sticking on the far side. And we saw yesterday that was the slower ground. They've got 3.5 to go, and Colchis is on the extreme left, and reference point on the right track by Dry Dock. And now Steve just asking him to quicken a little bit. They've got 2.5 to go. Colchis coming right over onto the stand side on the far side. It's reference point to the yellow spotted jacket, and as they go past our camera angle at right angles, you see that Colchis isn't that far away, but with 2 to go, it's reference point on the extreme right, Colchis on the extreme left. They've got a furlong and a half to travel. Reference on the far side, Colchis racing on his own. They come inside the final furlong, and Colchis and reference point has it now. Reference point just falters in the loose ground there. Colchis is wandering all over the shop inside the final furlong, and reference point comes well clear up towards the line. Reference point very easy. Reference point the winner, Dry Dock second, Colchis third. So the result of this, the Great Voltigeur, it's a win for number 1, the odds-on favourite reference point, owned by Mr. Lewis Freeman, trained at Newmarket by Henrik Cecil, ridden by Steve Corth, and officially it's a photo for second place, and it looks as if the only danger at reference point incurred here with that slight folder on the loose ground inside the final furlong, and Willie Carson tries to bump him pulling up. Officially a photo for second place. But that takes Henry Cecil's prize money to £1,976,502 on win and place money here and in Europe. So if he wins later on in the afternoon, the gimcrack with reprimand, he'll pass the £2 million prize money barrier.
Well, a lovely performance. Just one moment, I don't know whether it was a moment of doubt, halfway up the straight. I just suddenly thought perhaps Colchis and Cash Asmussen had got a sufficient advantage by coming over here, but immediately Colchis started to disgrace himself, just as he had done at Goodwood, and hung around the place. Well, reference point with that just one false stride. That was his only one false one. I'm almost certainly that was a patch of soft ground. Well, he may not have beaten much, but he's going to get a tremendous welcome. They love a good horse in Yorkshire, and here they've got one to cheer. Here he comes. They can't see him yet, but any moment now they will. Alison Dean leading in, great favourite, and there's Mrs. Freedman and Mr. Freedman, the owner breeder. What a proud man he must be.
Well, if you had £100 to spend, you could have put it with the Woolwich or with the Halifax. It would have taken you a year to earn 7%. This afternoon, it would have taken you, what, 2.5 minutes with reference point, and the risks are about the same.
Yes, I'd call him a very, very safe investment in this field, and touch wood, all being well in the meanwhile, you would think he would be a very safe investment in the St. Ledger. Having quite a blow there, that's an interesting picture. You can see reference points, the flanks heaving quite a bit, obviously. Henry Cecil wouldn't have him tuned up yet, and Doncaster some way off. So it's no surprise at all that this very testing ground has made him blow a little bit. Number 4 was second. Dry Dock has earned Mr. Hollingsworth £9,103. It's pretty fair prize for galloping a mile and a half. No doubt Dry Dock will have to go further next year. I should think he would be a cup horse of the future. Well, let's have a look at reference point doing it again, and we join them, I think, 3 furlongs out. There they are, Dry Dock and reference point over on the far side. Cash Asmussen has tried a perfectly reasonable tactical maneuver, coming over to the faster ground on this side, and at this point, Colchis seems to be perfectly happy. But if you keep your eye on Colchis, well, as a matter of fact, you want to keep your eye on reference point 2, because there is just a